the personnel boards, the cities contribute to that every year.
Well, I think this was,
For the consent decree?
yeah.
For the,
And I may
but
miss
that wouldn't
being-
apply to us,
Oh, I
because
mean,
they're out.
no, I was just,
Personnel board got out of it years back,
Yeah.
and then the sheriff got out, now we're out.
Birmingham got out.
that was the last.
So what, we.
I didn't see you sneak in.
Wait, I can't even do that right now. I don't know if my mask is.
No, looks like, yeah, really, looks like we've got around 3.299 million going into this time.
Yeah.
Is that,
Not our portion,
that's our portion?
I think. We're ready.
Yeah, I got a 11 o'clock, I got a hard stop, so if I have to get up and go, you know where I'm going.
9/11/30. This ain't gonna be that long.
Unless y'all make it long. All right, good morning. We're going to reconvene the budget hearings. This is September the 3rd, 2020. So all the commissioners are here, and our finance team's here, and so welcome everyone in Zoom land. All right. We have made some minor changes. Ms. Wormley, you want to just kind of run through those really quick?
Okay, the changes should have been highlighted in orange, and they all have a comment over to the far right. The first two are just shifting funding from the operating to salary. We received another request today from Commissioner Tyson to make her operating $15,000. When we go back, we'll incorporate that in.
Okay.
We reduced commission support by $10,000. We emailed you all out a breakdown of
Right.
that commission support. On page 3.
Before you leave page
Sure.
1, developmental services had increased.
And which one? The salary.
4,800,
Uh,
yes,
The salaries,
right. There just wasn't a note to the side over there, so.
a lot of them may have increased because we ran in a new salary forecast, but we did add a position there.
Right.
We added the building inspector.
Inspectors. Yeah.
Inspection services now.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
We can wait.
No.
We were able to
Commission
add that
support.
commission by deleting another position that's in the general fund budget as well, so there was some net cost to the
Later
general
on
fund, but we did add
on the
that
commission.
important position that they
Support
said was
and
critical to their
service.
You
operation.
can go ahead and make your question now.
I can-
What you got?
I was on page 4 where it's got the commission support and public service fund. Where it's got, demolition and cleanup, 125,000 that we were, taking from our, reducing from that.
Hang on. Page 4.
Page 8.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Okay. And what was the question?
I wanted my, 25,000 to go back into my discretionary money.
What, 25,000?
Just out of this 125.
So that's what's left.
That's what's left, and it's going into cleanup and
Demolition,
demolition.
yeah.
So they said they wasn't going to have any for them, they wasn't gonna do any demolition.
Commissioners, I am happy to report Heather Carter is working with ADM.
Right.
They want to contribute to the fire cleanup at approximately $300,000, so that's not in writing and ready yet. It'll be coming to you soon, but Heather's done a good job. I feel like we'll get some additional funding for that. If that makes a decision on what you're currently discussing.
And
I'll back what you say. I think that, if you just put that 25 back into the district funds, that the commissioners will know where to put it within the community.
that's why I want that.
And if you're not gonna need it for demolition, I would like to make that motion.
Is that, so it's almost like designated as infrastructure money?
Mhm.
So we have two
That
separate
will
accounts?
allow,
No,
so
it won't
there's
be
paving done, that Cal, that's, different infrastructure projects that we have? Is that,
Are you gonna make it demand that it goes to infrastructure?
no,
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily.
Okay.
So it just goes to,
So this 125, you saying in light of the $300,000 is no longer needed? That's what I'm hearing?
Yeah, each of us get another 25 for our district.
So then it'll go from 175 to 200 per
Right.
district?
That carries a 300 gonna take care of it all?
It'd be close, but I doubt it. No, sir, I mean, I don't know yet, we're approaching that much, but, I really couldn't answer, but I don't think it will.
it's the initial 300,000, or was it 250? It's 250, right?
Right.
For demolition. That was initially to do it for just the Forestdale, or was that for countywide?
Countywide.
I don't see why we would put it in discretionary then, instead of just putting it back towards demolition.
And that would be fine, what, Mr. Martin, I don't want to speak for him, he said that it didn't appear that we were going to be able to utilize any of the demolition, and that he would like to have it for the Forestdale fire. And that was the explanation that we got. Now, if it's different, we have a different
But
conclusion.
I have a need for my 25, y'all can do
Well, I
what
mean,
y'all
I get
want.
that, but if, I mean, demolition is a bigger deal.
Right.
And we need to get a bunch of them done. And I certainly understand we could get it done in specific districts, but if developmental services can use that money to either get the legal process or get homes demolished appropriately, and if that's not enough, then I get it, but would you say that we're not gonna do any this year?
I wouldn't say that. What we wanted to do was get a comprehensive plan for dangerous structure demolition. That's going to include, we need a little money to work with our legal firm that's helping us put together that plan. And then once we get that plan to y'all and to Tony on an estimated number of homes and how many we want to attack each year, then I think it'd be appropriate to make that decision. But right now, without getting additional outside help, it would be very difficult for development services to process many more than the 50,000 she has in her budget.
Is it already within?
But that was the same issue she had last year.
There you go.
I mean, you know, so what's changed, or nothing's changed? Because,
So you
So we
talked about
have-
outside legal help. How
Right.
much, do you know how much that would cost?
Yeah, it depends on how many houses. I'm thinking 3,000 or 4,000 per site, plus the 8 to 10 for demolition, depending on whether or not you got asbestos and that kind of thing. So you're looking at about 15,000 per site.
Because I have some sites already cleared because they're owned by their cities.
Yeah, but they still have to go through the same process that he's gonna have to develop
To condemn, right.
to have it done properly. I
Right.
mean, if there's some that's already gone through the legal process.
Yes, that's what
Then
I'm
I
saying.
get it.
It's already going through the legal process.
Okay.
You know, when we begin demolition, we're gonna need to do that in earnest. You know, not gonna be a 50,000, 100,000, 200,000.
We had, I
$1
think-
million. We had $1 million set aside at
last
one
year,
time,
yeah, and then it wasn't,
and then it went away, so.
yeah.
We either need to get in it or get out of it. Or either
But
say we're gonna do it or
to
not.
get in it, we gotta know what we're getting in, and
And that's what
Where we're
I'm
going.
saying. I need a few more months to really give you an idea of what we're looking at comprehensively. How many years you want to apply to that, to rectify it, 5 or 10, and then set up a program. We'll know how much to budget, we'll know who to hire. We can do our contracts for demolition and really start at it wide open with a measurable goal.
because I know we got a certain community in the district that Commissioner Scales and I share, and it needs to be done yesterday.
I do, I have something to, you know, I fussed last year, I'm not gonna fuss this year. you know, we'll use whatever money that we have. If you put it in the district, we can do it. And I guess if it's been through the process, that we can utilize that within the district. Am I correct? To
That's what I
demolish
felt
it.
like.
So it would be county crews that would be demolishing is what you're planning, or outside?
Outside.
Okay.
Okay, so we can help cities do their demolition within their cities,
Yes,
is that what you're asking?
right.
You know, what we were told last year is that it was gonna take a year to go through the process. So if you do your process this year, we will know how many houses that we'll have that we can actually work through and demolish and allocate it in the budget for next year for actual.
Right.
Okay.
It takes 8 to 12 months to get it condemned properly.
Well, that's what we were told last.
Last year.
And now we're at the same, it seems like we're at the same
It'd be
point.
more
Well,
of
the
getting it clear, legally getting it clear to do it, because the properties that I'm talking about has already
right,
been
well, let's-
cleared.
Let's get, y'all, if you'll get with Derek and y'all will work on that
We're
plan.
working on it right now.
Okay, all right, so, the request is to delete the demolition cleanup category and then add that back to the district funds. And so, does anybody have an objection to doing that?
Unless there's another department that would need it more. I mean,
Well, my department.
I get there are some districts that need it more than others.
The motion on the floor that,
It's just, when we go discretionary, that becomes a slippery slope, and so, I won't terribly, but it's still.
Well, it's still the reduction in district funds,
Yeah, still $50,000 off.
Right.
yeah,
so,
motion on the floor that they move it to the district fund.
And with the understanding, Cal, if you would, we really do need to demolish houses.
I agree.
I mean, we really do. I think it would be a better use of what we've got.
and clean up the yards,
Yeah.
you know, where they're overgrown and. All right, there's a motion on the table to, move the demolition cleanup to district fund. Do I have a second?
Did I make the motion?
I thought,
Second.
all right. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll make that change, Ms. Warman. Okay, now where were we?
Page 3.
Page 3.
The revenue forecast received from the revenue department increased by 2.2 million. That is in regards to the simplified seller's use tax. Page 4.
Can I ask a quick question? Was July and August that good that it was, projections could change?
Yes, sir, we actually looked, we've been running, keeping close tabs on the calculations for the major sales tax revenues, things of that nature. We were pleasantly surprised that in the month of July, everything came in flat with the prior year, so we were excited about that. Wasn't sure if that was an anomaly, if it was going to continue. And we got our information just a couple of days ago. I haven't reconciled fully yet, but at the end of August, it looks like we're going to be on par with the prior year for the month of August as well as the
That's
month of
good.
July. So
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
encouraging
Yeah.
news. And, there was down like 1%, but that was offset by the online sales tax. The online sales tax has really been booming. We're right now almost 100% over the prior year. And a lot of people are utilizing the online services
Yeah.
now, I guess, with the COVID-19, a lot of people are from home, but it's easy to order things and you have it delivered the next day or within 2 working days.
Yeah.
Amazon's on your doorstep, things like that. So it seems to be a wave of the future. So we reevaluated our calculations, and we've been real conservative on our estimates for revenues, but we looked at several of those and feel comfortable about where we're at with our revenues are still very conservative, but we felt very strongly at the online streamlined sales tax. We could bump that up another 2.2 million very comfortably. I feel that that's something we can use towards next year's budget. so we did increase that.
Good deal.
But,
Thank you.
But the
But the-
bottom of the waterfall is gonna be affected.
Correct.
It's gonna be,
Well, we still have a consternation about the economy and where it's going and what it's gonna do, but that's good that we can make that upper projection.
I appreciate that update.
Okay. Ms. Wormley?
Okay, the bottom of page 3, we decreased the dollar amount going to OPEB. And the other items are noted, and they'll all be reflected on page 5. We just kind of changed around how we were funding.
And the OPEB will be,
265,000.
that was decreased. We had an initial 485,
Yes.
but we're gonna fund that with the reserves left over this year so that we can decrease this for next year.
Page 4, we received in from the state of Alabama the actual approved budget for the Board of Equalization Tax Assessor, Birmingham and Bessemer. So these changes reflect what the state approved, all state funding.
Now, did the state decrease these funds from what
Yes.
we were?
Yes,
Does that mean we have to increase our portion?
no, this is 100%
Okay.
State funded.
All right.
Commissioner, the prior information was based upon the requests from the organizations to the state of Alabama.
Okay.
And once they reviewed it, they asked departments to.
Okay,
reduce
but
those
whatever,
somewhat.
whatever they allocate, that's their budget, they have to abide by, basically.
Right, and these are perpetual operating funds, even though there's a shortfall between revenue and expenditures. Each year, there's always a little surplus remaining in those mapping and appraisal budgets, and the state authorizes them to carry that over and use that toward the revenue for the next year funding. So there is no general fund cost involved in that, even though it looks like on paper there may be a description between revenues and expenditures. They're allowed to use any fund balance reserved within those funds for next year's operations.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
On the Bridge and Public Building Fund,
What page are you on?
I'm on 5. We hit 52,633,000. Our debt service for this year, Travis, is 25,940.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna put 8.8 million out in the road fund. Why did we fund our public service fund out of that guarantee and the CapEx also? You know, I thought we were gonna use CapEx out of our waterfall, in case we didn't have it.
We can use either
It's
one,
fungible.
Commissioner.
I think it's just,
Whichever one y'all use, both
Semantics.
of these funds are, the Bridge and Public Building Fund is restricted in one manner, that is you have to pay debt service first. But once that debt service obligation is satisfied, then it can be used for any general fund operations. It depends on how y'all want to use it. They're interchangeable between either the waterfall or the Bridge and Public Building Fund. At the last meeting, I thought there was some discussion about, we had made some commitments from the streamline of the special revenue sales tax to use that money towards 10 million towards the economic development, and also as much as we could towards, that was left towards the capital road fund. And so we tried to use that money first for those two particular projects, and then fund the remainder out of the Bridge and Public Building Fund. But we can do it either way if y'all feel more comfortable.
I was really just looking at the process to see exactly why we were doing it that way. You know, if our sales tax goes down, we want to make sure that it would come out of our capital projects, I guess.
Yes.
Because we don't want it to include anything that has to do with personnel. Because we certainly don't want to do that for any general operating. And that was my main concern.
but I don't think this is operating though, is it? The road fund? Is that the general road fund or is that the capital fund?
That's the general operating fund, 8.8 million.
Okay.
There's a shortfall. We did have an increase in the state gasoline taxes for next year. There's a 2-cent state gasoline tax that was added in September this year that will be effective next year. So we were able to bump a little over 1 million in the projections for the state gasoline taxes within that fund. But there is still a shortfall between the revenues and the operating account.
But that-
there in the road operating fund.
But I think that public service fund, that's still bottom of the waterfall, even though it says from general fund, right?
So initially, we had it coming out of the bottom of the waterfall.
Mhm.
But like Travis said, after the last meeting, we thought the consensus was to move it, to take it from the bottom of bridge.
They changed it, reason I was asking.
You're talking about all that movement?
No, I think you
How
have
things
to,
have moved from previous.
yeah, I think you have to, that, I know public service fund, because if those funds dry up at the bottom of the waterfall, that takes those district funds out as opposed to, some of the other,
Right.
issues. So, can we,
Yes, sir, we could do it either way.
I mean, we're just- it's
I
just
heard
on
that, the special revenue, I thought there was a consensus to use that primary, the bottom of the waterfall for the economic development and the road capital improvement. So
no, the bottom of the waterfall doesn't, the economic development doesn't come out of the
That's
bottom
part
of
of
the
the
waterfall.
water-
That's
part
part
of
of the
the waterfall.
36.2 million in the waterfall,
Yeah,
but not
I
the
mean,
bottom.
that's- yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes. There's a 36.3.
Right, but that 10 is in that 36.
In the language,
I
but
understand.
that it's sort of earmarked internally, yes.
I understand that, so, we'll clear that up.
Yeah, I didn't mean to confuse back.
No, I understand what you're saying.
I just didn't want to get to funding any departments out of the bottom of the waterfall and the funding dry up, and then we not have, money to pay the employees. That was my entire question.
Well, I think I had that question last year, because personnel department got funded out of that, if I'm not mistaken. But I digress. So, okay, so that's good, we'll revisit that, just to make sure it's basically it's nomenclature.
Yeah, it's not gonna change
Right.
anything, the bottom line for the general fund or the general fund operation, so we can do it either way, which.
It's just good for process and.
Right, we wanna make,
Future years.
we wanna make this consistent each year.
Yeah.
To how we do it. Okay, good deal. Good catch there, Mr. Stevens. All right, Ms. Wormley.
Yes. Okay, so we basically just went over page 5 changes. Page 7. We increased general services program capital, based on some additional revenue that we had. And also we decreased information technology because the Windows 7 software was reduced.
All right, that general services was increased from 5.3 to 6.67. Okay,
And road capital construction, we increased it by the additional revenue that came in from the simplified seller's use tax.
Okay.
By 2.25.
okay. And the sheriff's capital projects is 2.94. I didn't see, I don't recall what those capital projects were. I know there were some leases out there.
Most of it is centered around the equipment leases, but there is a rebuild of the helicopter's turbine engine, which is a significant amount that will be, I think it's gonna last something like 1,000 hours. I don't know how. They've really utilized that helicopter this past year. And they're about a year up on that.
There was a question about the hangar. Is that in here or is that not going forth? Do you know?
I don't think that right now, it won't be involved in this year's budget.
Okay.
There's a big hole out there they're trying to fill, with Morgan Road, excess dirt. So, I think that, it's something that will be down the pipe, but
Okay.
not right now.
Okay.
$654,000 for engine money.
Wow. Okay.
And $928 for Motorola radio, so it's a lot of money.
It's okay. Thank you. Yeah, I got that somewhere. Okay.
Page 8.
Mhm.
We had initially increased the budget for the district funds, where after today, that number will change from $875,000 to $1 million, and we will remove the demolition.
Okay.
And on page 10, initially, the paperwork that we passed out was EMA's budget from last year as a placeholder. They have since approved their budget by their board and gave it to us on Monday. So we've updated this to reflect their approved budget by their board.
Okay.
And those are all of the changes.
All right. I have a question on page 10 on the roads, fleet management, 7.17 in operating. Is that included the new vehicles that they have to purchase?
No, there are vehicles that are recommended in this budget are on page 7.
All right.
In the first section, it is $459,000.
What page is it on? Page,
Page 7,
okay.
fleet vehicles, $459,000.
You mean fleet management?
Yes,
Okay, that's in addition to their,
yes.
okay. So that's basically 15 million to fleet. Cal? Is that you?
10 plus 5 is about 10.5. Fleet on page 10, the total.
Oh,
is
okay,
10
okay,
million.
okay. I was,
That's 9 vehicles, I think.
okay.
If I recall.
Yes,
And this $4.5 million, does that come from sale of surplus equipment?
Yeah.
That comes from actual billings to like enterprise funds, environmental services, for example, they actually have to pay for their services. The fleet also does contract with some members of the PACA, some municipalities locally, and our organizations where they actually charge out some of their services, and that's the revenues that they collect. So, the balance has to be covered by the general fund. There is an allocation on our indirect cost, that those net costs are eventually allocated out to all of the funds in some manner there. We're hopeful that the current budget is about what it has been, but we're very hopeful that from some information we've got from Cal and his people, that they have purchased a lot of newer vehicles and that will not require as much maintenance, hopefully in the future, as they have in the past, that those actual costs will go down, just based on the actual expenditures for the last couple of years. But we hope next year that those maintenance costs should go down some.
You know, especially the ones that you can keep within the manufacturer's warranty.
Exactly.
If you can turn them every 3 years or something like that, I think you would, that would be beneficial.
And it's a 7.17.
Also includes our fuel for
Yeah.
road VSD. That's a lot. And,
Okay.
you know, a vehicle is wrecked, that includes the body work after repair.
Okay.
Not fussing about it.
And it's the same as it was in 20, so I guess that's it. Mr. Stevens, you have a question?
I did on the CapEx project for the sewer,
Page,
page 9. $195,730,000, is that just to encumber that money? There's no way we're gonna be able to spend that for the,
It is, the way they have to do their projects, they need to encumber it all. They expect to spend about half of it this year, and then the next year, the other amount.
so do you have on your CapEx for sewer, what are the anticipated, CapEx expenditures for next year?
Commissioner, I'm not sure. We do have a 5-year plan for that, and I'll have to get that back.
Okay. And what I'm thinking about, Travis,
They gave us a schedule about the actual, what they expect. and it's about $75 million in actual expenditures next year. But we talked to David about it because it kind of makes our budget look kind of bad because that discrepancy there. But he said he really needs all those projects set up so that they've got contracts, they've got to encumber. These are multi-year contracts that are to be ongoing for a number of years, and they need that budget availability in order to encumber those contracts. I will say that for an enterprise funds, this is not really an expenditure on the accounting records as it is.
Yeah,
Of course, it's just investment in fixed asset, I guess, or capital improvements. So it'll go down as a purchase of an asset as opposed to an expenditure, but on paper, we have to show the projected.
Yeah, you're not expending this. This is a CapEx. This is capital expenditure that you would depreciate over a minimum of 50 years, I guess, is what, unless it's equipment. What I was concerned about is that we allocated, when we set up our, coming out of bankruptcy, we set up the sewer fund to cover the CapEx.
Right.
And $195 million a year is not sustainable, so.
That's bad.
And we had $160 million set aside for phosphorus, which has been delayed to 2026 maybe.
And we think
And
that's
it's gonna go away or go down.
Move down drastically.
So that's other good news, and what I want to do, I want to check the sewer fund to make sure that money that's there, that we are on track and that this isn't something that's come up. So
Okay.
next year, we should have much less in CapEx coming out.
Yes, sir. And good question. I don't know the figures for the next few years. I do know it's well within his budgeted plan for the CapEx and what money he has available. This is a planned set of projects. Nothing catastrophic has happened or came up additional to what they've had planned the last several years.
But this is encumbering about half of their capital
that's-
total budget.
That was my,
Yeah.
that was really my point on that, Commissioner. And it looked a little out of line compared to everything else that we have. We've worked for how many years now to establish that CapEx reserve? And you're gonna drop half of it in 1 year?
No.
Okay, I'm good.
No, so
As long as I've made everyone aware of it, I'm good.
I had the
We've
same
discussion with
concern.
David, and I will say that they're very on top of all these projects and the cash flows and everything else. Their actual cash availability has increased over the last several fiscal years, even though there's been a fair amount of these projects and things. So they're very aware of maintaining a certain fund balance for their capital and debt service requirements, things of that nature. And that's important moving forward. But yes, we did have that detailed discussion, and he just said he needs this amount just so that he's able, we cannot encumber the contracts unless the budget is sitting out there for these, through the personnel system and everything else they require, that we document that the budget has been established for that particular contract. These contracts will be spent over the next 5, 6, 7 years, so it's nothing that's going to be expended next year.
I'd like to see a timeline of the project and what money will be encumbered next year and the year after.
We got that coming, Commissioner. We'll do,
Yeah, because we have this little thing we gotta deal with in 2 or 3 years that we don't want that to.
And that CapEx reserve we had was looking real good as far as our refunding.
Right.
And it looks like it may have looked good to someone else, and they said, well, we just want to give a little bit of that. So that's what I'm concerned about.
I agree.
that's not the case, but I'll get you the presentation very soon. And the state public works law, when you award these big contracts, you have to certify that the funds are budgeted. And that kind of puts us in a bind with these big projects, so. But we're working towards a presentation to that great question and make sure that everybody's comfortable with that.
When these funds are encumbered, are they moved out of CapEx reserve and put into the budget? Sewer?
Yes, it says it
ESD?
decreases the fund balance, so.
No, sir, they're not moved out of the reserve, and, you know, that money's sitting out there. The only time that changes is when they're actually expended.
So you're actually, you're pulling out of reserve, even when we budget, when we take $195 million out of CapEx reserve and encumber it, it actually still stays there and until you expend it, and then you pull it out of the reserve.
Yeah, it only comes out of reserve as it's expended.
Okay, so it's still invested in such as it is.
Yeah, and pretty much all the CapEx expenditures the last several years have been, there's funds available within the operating revenues of the system to pay for all of those. So we haven't really touched the CapEx reserves the last several years.
Well, last year it was 60 million, and this year it's
CapEx reserve
195.
is, I think the budget is about 60 million. We still have 375 million available in the reserve.
375.
Yes, sir.
But you're getting ready to take 195 of that and encumbered it now.
You taking 195 or
It's
143?
encumbered. It's not a change, it's just a budgetary move to allow them to encumber the contracts. It will not be expended. We expect the reserve to be like 70 million coming out of the reserve, but most of that will actually be coming out of the operating account of the system. You know, if there's a pull on reserves, at this point in time, it would only be in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 million maximum,
Really?
based upon his projections.
Okay. Well, we'll get that, look at it.
We got that coming, yes, sir.
All right. All right. Is there any other questions? I do have a couple.
I did have,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
had a question.
All right.
So I know that this is typically our economic development budget. I remember last year,
What page you on?
Okay, I'm about to say, we're on page 4,
Okay.
where it says Economic Development Fund, 2175. So, obviously, what was not used in this past budget goes back to general fund, am I correct?
Rolls over.
It rolls over?
Rolls over.
So if it rolls over, then is this an accurate balance of 10 million?
That should just be what's transferred.
Because I thought that that's what's transferred annually.
Yeah.
It
This
is.
is just the budget added to what's already in the fund.
You know how much is in that fund already?
13.5. 13.5.
13, what?
13.5.
Yeah, well, I'm saying is that it could be 13,000.
No, 13 million.
Huh?
13 million,
Million.
500,000.
Oh, okay, so then it's gonna go to 23 million?
Yes.
Some of us already have some other commitments for Commissioner.
So in other words, it's already encumbered? How much of that 23 million is encumbered?
I don't think.
It depends on what
It just rolls over.
is coming out of it, and depending on any of the incentives that we've already done, whether it's a jobs incentive,
Right.
then that's encumbered pending, like Shipped. You know, Shipped had 120,000 come out because they met the job requirement.
I get it, I just wanna
So
know
there's a number
what
of
our,
those.
the
Let's-
amount of
I
our
can get-
obligations as
Get-
relates to that. In other words, it's not, so really and truly it's 23 million, but it's not really 23 million because you already got it encumbered for a purpose.
Well, the
I'm
fund
trying to see
balance,
is what is the amount of what is unencumbered?
the fund balance at 2019,
Say it again. Say it again, Joe.
the fund balance was
Right.
13.5 on our audit.
He's saying
2019.
fund balance in terms of this particular
That
appropriation.
fund, yeah,
Okay, and so is what now?
13.5.
I can get you the list. We track it. And so we have a spreadsheet, and I'll
So what I'm
distribute-
saying
I'll
is that
distribute it to
13, but
everybody.
out of that 13.5, I was just trying to find out, what was already encumbered versus what was not encumbered. And so.
Like the stadium, at $1 million a year.
You don't get what I'm saying. In other words, if you have encumbered dollars,
Mhm.
we automatically know that's coming out.
Why don't you get us a?
So what I'm saying,
I'll
I
get
just
you the-
wanna
I'll get
know
you
what's
the
left
spreadsheet.
out there, so if you have any new projects or whatever, Like, how much do we actually have
Oh,
that
what's
can be
remaining?
used
Okay,
for
let me
future
get you that,
purposes?
let me get you that spreadsheet.
Yeah,
And
but you all
distribute
don't
it- I'll
have it?
distribute it to everybody.
Okay, only you have it?
Well, when we do it,
Mm-hmm.
then it's, we keep track of it, and then, so it's encumbered for the most part, but
Right,
it's
when you
still
say
on.
we, you
it's-
talking about your office?
Yeah.
Your
You
office?
have to ask.
And I think John Henry used to have a copy of it as well, so I don't
So
know
then
if
that means
Travis.
Miss Angela would have it? She's saying she doesn't.
No, John Henry used to keep track of it as
I
well.
think we've got commitments, I don't know if it's necessarily encumbered, but like the World Games, police and
Yeah.
fire games coming up.
Yeah, but to me, that's like encumbered dollars, because in other words, it already has an amount attached to
Yeah,
whatever
it's
our level of
committed.
commitment
Well, yeah,
was.
no, it should be.
And so all I want to know is like, what dollars do you have
We can get
that's
that.
available to
That
spend?
should be that'd be a good thing to just do
Yeah.
a presentation
Yeah.
on it, say, hey,
Okay.
this is where we started, this is what we spent, this is where we are. That'd be a good thing.
We'll get it all, we'll get it all updated.
Yeah,
and
because
make
I know
sure-
there's some dollars that we have, because we have multi-year agreements, am I right?
Yeah,
Travis?
like World Games.
Then, right, and then you just got over this new,
Stadium.
what, police and fire,
Police and
fire.
Police and fire games.
Yeah, so I know it has to have a dollar amount attached to it, and we just have to always have it in the budget so that.
We have it, it's separated by year, so it'll show it multiple years out.
Do we have
You
a,
asking for a monthly report? Still?
Yeah, I mean, I just like to see where we are with that money, because hopefully there are gonna be some projects that are coming up, huh?
You know, that's not a transaction account, Harvey. Once you'll know, you'll know
Anytime we do an
what's there
incentive.
each year.
A job incentive.
And you'll have the job incentives come out. If FedEx comes in and says 300 new jobs, and you're gonna pay them
$2,000 a job.
$2,000 a job, that money's coming out for,
I don't know if they'll qualify for that.
yeah.
No,
you know.
they don't, but, I mean, the point's
I
taken, you know,
just
it's
use that
over,
as
it's over
an
a 3-year
example. Sure.
period. As they ramp up, we want to make sure that when they hit those marks, that we have that money available.
Right, and you
So I get,
probably need to give all the commission your criteria for qualifying for
Yeah.
jobs, and mainly
Right.
centered around manufacturing.
yeah, same thing we did, you know, when we had the economic development.
Yeah, same
So-
thing. You just
Yeah,
Yep,
maybe to remind everyone,
yeah, not a problem.
keep everybody on the same thing.
and also a report on what we've expended,
Mhm.
you know, because we have those clawback clauses, you know, have they met their
Right,
criteria?
yep.
Do we have any, I don't know if what's the means, how we track that?
That's mostly done in the tax assessor's office.
Okay.
John Poe tracks all of that and maintains that, so that they make those. So we're in contact with him, but there's not a huge defined process for those. So
Before
probably
we-
it absolutely needs to be one developed.
Yeah, I think so, before we start doling out money and then don't have any way to track it. Okay, that was, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I
We'll
mean,
get
what
it-
you're
we'll get
saying
that.
is that you're gonna be prepared, Commissioner, to give us all like a,
I'll send out the spreadsheet,
Spreadsheet.
yeah.
yeah. Because I remember last year, there was something about the, Commissioner
What
Knight,
time you gotta go?
as relates to monies that were taken out of that,
Call of Commerce. Sorry.
I was saying about, remember that on last year, that there was some monies that was taken out of
Economic
economic development for roads, which is
Right.
why I was trying to find out,
Right.
you know, how are we looking in regards to that fund, 2175.
Okay. All right,
Yeah, and I think.
So, because I'm a little lost, because if he says $13 million dollars that's there, if we took away 5, I think, last year, I'm just trying to figure out how we got to that amount.
We actually put that 5 back and borrowed that. I think that they changed their
We
process.
borrowed it and put it back?
I think so.
well, we need to look at that. Steve, get us a report on
I will.
I know Steve's got to go, and there's a couple other things I want to discuss before we go, and I don't mean to cut you off, but, there's the issue of the COLA. And I know it's out there. There's been a request made to do a COLA. Travis, what is the cost of doing a COLA, say at 1.5% to 2%, or one, I would get three balls over the net. You're a tennis guy. 1 million, 1.5, and 2.
Yes, sir. If I could just give a very brief overview. We've done a projection of our fund balance for this fiscal year, taking a look at everything and forecasting for this up through everything through August and projecting for the last month. And it's, subject to change a little bit at month end, but there should be very minimal change in there. This is a modified accrual basis accounting, so we always adjust for accounts receivable, accounts payable at fiscal year end. But right now, we're projecting that our fund balance, we're going to have a positive fund balance this year in the general fund of a growth of $8.5 million. And that's, hopefully we'll keep pace with that. We have a budget that we're recommending, and it's a fully funded budget. It includes all of the vacant positions are fully funded. It's a balanced budget that we're not taking from fund balance or surplus other than what's in the environmental services area, but everything else is fully funded for the year. And we feel very good about our revenue projections for next year. We've been very conservative in that regard. Basically, our property taxes, which are probably the major revenue other than sales taxes for next year, we've kind of kept them low to about 1% growth, and we fully expect that once we get more detailed information to be beyond that growth. My understanding is that the property values have increased pretty successfully, and there's an appeal process going on now, so we won't know the bottom of that for a little while. But we do have a balanced budget. Within this budget that we've recommended, there is, on page 3, there's a remaining balance once we're able to increase some revenues. We had some available contingency. It's $3.1 million that out there that has not been earmarked for anything at this particular point in time. And I did want to mention about the health insurance costs. Our employees have done a really good job the last several years of not abusing the health insurance and going to emergency rooms all the time. They're actually applying by programs that have been established through human resources for preventive measures. We had a surplus of $2.8 million in premiums over actual costs for FY19. This year, we're projecting an increase in that regard of $3.5 million on the insurance that the employees have stayed within those premium levels, which is very encouraging because that's one of the things that grow. I've been reading articles recently about the cost of living moving forward. One of the major concerns is because of the stimulus packages and the potential for inflation moving forward. They are projecting right now, there's been a lot of issues with food because packaging issues, I guess, and production of food, that they expect food to go up 4% in the near future. Housing is estimated to be going up pretty dramatically at 5 to 7%, which are a few of the staples moving forward. We did have the Social Security increase there. Percentage this year 1.6. I think they're looking at something similar for next year. The pension board approved a 2% increase for their employees. So my understanding that EMA just recently approved a 1.5%, I think it was, increase for theirs. But with the net impact and in the budget that we've adopted, there's like a total of $13.8 million for vacant salaries out there that are fully funded. So I feel like we're on very stable, solid ground. If it's feasible for the commission to consider, there is a cost of a 1% COLA actually impacts the general fund about $1 million after we take out the vacancies. 1.1, but a portion of that is vacant monies that would not be applicable. We don't expect those vacancies to be substantially filled in the next year. So it's basically a $1 million cost for 1% increase. If it's feasible for the commission, I would truly like for y'all to consider for the employees, because A lot of them have been very diligent. We're facing a lot of issues. We've had a lot of people out with COVID-19 issues. We've been shorthanded, and it's requiring a lot of input from everybody else to take up that slack. We've got some of our employees with childcare issues that they're not able to work full-time as they may, and it's getting real stress for our employees, and I think something along the lines of at least a small increase to help them with inflation would go a long way towards the morale.
Yes, I agree.
I agree with everything you said. Steve, don't leave yet.
Huh?
I got 2 minutes. I got
Okay.
less than a minute.
All right, well, you know, but, you know, your forecasting, is based on present and projecting funding, but I'm still not comfortable looking into the future and seeing, a rosy picture. I still think we have to be cautious going forward till we don't know what the economy is gonna do. We don't know what COVID's gonna do. Will there be another, wave or two, you know, and coming up on flu season? So I'm nervous about doing it. We've done COLAs, for the last 5 or 6 years. Is that right, Ms. Wormley, Marilyn? We've done there's been a COLA of 1 to 2% each year. And so this year, I'm just cautious about budgeting, for something that we don't know what's gonna happen, even though our employees have done a jam-up job. And I would even offer in place of a COLA, maybe an extra holiday or something like that. So that's just something we have to.
But this is also something we could take on, say, mid-year when we know what the projections are and we have a little bit more of a comfort level. We could do one
Let me
mid-year.
ask this.
I would be for, if indeed we are in times of uncertainty, and we don't know what, the winter is going to bring as far as the employment. I think we need to, fully support our employees. And if indeed we do have that fund balance, if it is as you projected, Travis, I think that we could reflect that in a significant COLA next year, once that we've gotten on the other side of this. This
So let me make
pandemic.
sure I'm understanding. Are you saying, Mr. President, we're not gonna do a COLA at all?
This year.
I mean, okay, so let me just make my statement.
In this
If-
budget.
If we're not going to provide hazard pay, why couldn't we at least do something? I mean, you know, even if it's a reduced amount, but, you know, you need to do something. If we're not gonna provide hazard pay, and we know that, you know, we've exposed, you know, staff to different things and they've held on. I'm just saying, we've gotta show our appreciation for them working even when most of us were working remotely. That's not a throwout. I'm just saying, if we can at least do a reduced amount. Let's just say that the original COLA, I had stepped out for just a moment, the original COLA that you were recommending is what?
I was recommending, Commissioner, just 1.5 to 2% for consideration.
Okay, so, I mean, can we do 1%? I mean, just something to just show them that we do appreciate the fact that they've been doing a superb job. I think a part of us being able to manage our online services come from staff still having to manage that. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am, and one other consideration is the COVID-19 monies that we will have throughout the remainder through December. Mr. Patelis and I and Angela and a group have all been working on COVID-19 issues.
Mhm.
And we feel pretty strongly that we're getting approval for the frontline public
Workers?
safety personnel, that's going to qualify, and that will be a huge help to the county's general fund as well, that we can cover those salaries for the sheriff's deputies that are on the front lines and cover those all under the COVID-19 expenditures. We have other expenditures that we will be, these are fully adopted in the coming budget, but those can be offset.
Let me ask this
somewhat by
question then.
COVID-19.
If we did it at 1%, what does that look like?
1.1 million to the budget.
Is that right?
That's what you just said.
Okay, I mean, nothing I can understand.
Maybe you were out
Okay,
of it.
I was probably. So, $1.1 million, I think is a reasonable investment into the folk who are helping us to get this job done. I don't need looking down there, I'm gonna look over here.
I agree.
Just one, if we could only do that, at least that's better than just no. I mean, it's only $1.1 million.
We haven't stopped the merits,
I understand
like some
that.
others have had to do.
I don't care about those
I
folks.
know,
I'm
I'm
talking about
just
what we
saying.
doing
I
but
understand.
hold on.
Even with us agreeing, are we gonna do it? Because I think we need to do it. I really do.
And the reason why I say that is because on one note, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, and Madam Commissioner, is if you do it at least at 1% and you forecast 8.5 million, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. for
All
general
right.
fund service.
Well,
This year.
I'm just trying to do the math, Mr. Chairman. So you said 8.5, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
All right, so you still talking about $7.4 million that we could potentially see. And I don't see how we could, one outweighs the other. In fact, I think it does outweigh if you got $7.4 million that you anticipate may come. And if we do it at 1%, then at least the hazard pay would pick up on one part. And then what it doesn't cover, which is most of the administrative workers that we have here, then at least the 1% will take up the other. I mean, is that a reasonable compromise? We all can agree to that?
I'd like to hear from Mr. Patelis.
The hazard pay is in question right now. Had an email from the County Commission Association, and they're still concerned about doing a blanket paying the public safety workers without being laid out COVID related. I think that issue is going to get resolved once Congress gets together. I think they're going to loosen the rules, but today we're taking the advice of Whit O'Brien and NACO and the Alabama County Commission Association is on not to fund the public safety positions outright.
But what about the hazard pay?
The hazard pay.
Who qualifies for
the
hazard pay?
The only group that qualifies for the hazard pay is the sheriff's deputies who are out in working in the streets. Whit O'Brien has approved for our security officers. So, we're looking, we can help there, and then youth detention. Those are the three areas only. Unfortunately, you have like in revenue, you
Right.
have all those workers
Right.
that they don't qualify.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's the question that I asked when we were talking about the sheriffs before and about the security officers that we have here. And that's what you said, is that it only applies to public safety as it relates to the sheriff's department. That's why I was saying that $1.1 million in the larger scheme of the budget, I think is at least showing some sort of support on our end for the workers that we have. And especially if you're anticipating 8.5, and even let's just say if you don't realize that, the math still allows us to be able to absorb the 1.1 and have at least $1 million or $2 million, maybe more, to have in the budget. So I hope we consider that.
But we still have to fund the budget stabilization fund, the catastrophic fund, and the uncertainty fund out of that 8.5. So, and that's about two each.
Right, but what I'm saying though, Commissioner, is, respectfully, we're in a vulnerable time, and everybody understands that. And I think that if we if we show some sort of commitment on our end to, we've asked the departments to reduce their budgets, but to reinvest back into the employees, I think we can't do what we do without them. So that's why I'm saying I think in the larger scheme of things it's a small amount, but it can make a break for some folks.
All right,
So if we consider that, I'd certainly appreciate it.
we will consider it, and we'll take that up Tuesday at our finance meeting. I think that would be about the only issue outstanding on budget.
Well, I mean, does anyone have any questions now? That we couldn't just go ahead, because then we could be through with this budget altogether. Isn't this the last component of the budget?
As far as I know.
So, I mean,
think what we have is, does everyone have a copy of the fiscal policies? All the commission officers?
I mean, I don't mind getting another one just to be.
Okay,
in
and
on.
I think that Travis,
Yes, sir.
if you would, and what we're trying to do, we're trying to adhere and go by those fiscal policies.
Right.
And when we do that, it has certain funding that you have to do. And we're trying to follow general accepted accounting principles like GASB. When we work through that, 5% is a minimum acceptable, revenue over expenses. Travis?
That's what
I don't know
you,
if that is actually in the
I
policy.
know, we've tried to adhere to 5%, and we're kissing at that right now.
and you're trying to fund these other funds at 5% of your expenditures too.
Right.
And we haven't reached a cap.
So that's, if we do that, I promise you, and that is so very striking folks. Look at that, Joe.
You've got the mask off.
But y'all, do you want to fund it? I know wanting to fund it and.
Wanting to fund
Oh,
it.
wanting to fund it, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
it's not that we don't want to.
Absolutely, I totally get that,
All right.
but are we gonna fund it or not?
Well-
Or y'all don't wanna discuss it because we don't have a full body?
No, we got a quorum. I'm just saying that.
They missing one person.
Well, what I'm saying is,
No, it's not a thing.
but what I'm saying, Mr. President and Mr. Chairman,
Yeah. I understand what you're saying is that we need to show appreciation to those who are here. I get it. I'm just saying.
what I'm asking is, once you provide me the policy, in other words, you're saying that we need to make sure that we don't go under a certain amount in order for us to be able to operate as a county. I get that point. But what I'm saying to you is that we have applauded the committed and concerted effort of these employees. And I'm saying a 1% COLA. I mean, if he talked about 2, that's at least a happy medium. It's 1. You're only talking about $1.1 million to the workforce that's providing the county services, and those especially who's taking in money to help us to be where we are. And the hazard pay, I asked Mr. Patelis about this weeks ago. So if we're not going to provide hazard pay, then, because if you recall, even Board of Equalization wanted to have a raise, and we didn't do that. So, yeah, because I brought it to your attention.
Now, also, I want to say that our merit raises will continue as is. We're very fortunate to be able to continue the merit raises for our employees. But we're going to, on the hazard pay, we're very limited to what we can do. But you have other employees out there that, like in probate, that deal with the public every single day, the probate court and Board of Equalization.
And security.
Yeah. What, in the alternative, if we were to administer a $250 per employee one-time COVID bonus to be administered somewhere around Christmas time. It costs about a little over $700,000, which is not that different, but you're not encumbering the county any further than that. And it allows you to make that adjustment in the coming year if indeed we need to.
So where would this
It would
appear
be
in
a
the,
bonus for the employees, which I think would be great around Christmas.
what would be the
time.
funding source?
General fund.
Same place,
Which is where?
the bottom of the waterfall, or if indeed they choose, where would you want to get it from, Travis? The same place you were going to get you 1% COLA.
Yes, sir, it'd be the bottom of the waterfall.
Yeah, and,
And that would be a one-time deal. It would show our gratitude to our employees. It would not encumber the county moving forward and give us that flexibility. If indeed next year we are having, these projections look good, we're not we can encumber 2, 3, 4%. And if not, we're not.
The Personnel Board has allowed for us to do this. This is, you couldn't do this under a normal situation. The problem that we're having, when it's called hazard pay, it comes out of the CARES Act money.
Right.
But what we'll be doing here is opening up to all the employees, but it will have to come from the general fund.
I don't have a problem with that.
And I think that shows our gratitude to our employees. It does not put the county at risk moving forward. And,
So is it the amount of 1.1 that is the issue? Because if you had 700,000, you're $400,000 short. That makes up 1.1.
if it's 1.1, it's a merit increase that will go on year after year.
But you had to be a
after
merit
year.
employee in order to experience that type of incentive.
And if you do this, it would be all county employees.
Okay.
And it
So all county employees are merit employees. Is that what I'm?
Most of
Okay.
them are.
No, sir, not all,
No.
not all county employees are married. but-
Okay, I didn't think so. That's why I'm like,
Most
I'm
of
looking
them
over
are.
here, talk to me.
But normally the COLA
Does-
has included all appointed and.
Right.
So how about we do this?
Uh-oh.
No, I'm just saying, this is the beauty of having been on budget and finance,
Uh-huh.
okay? So how about we do this? For all those unmerited employees, that we give the COLA to those who are not merit employees. So
We do that
then,
anyway.
huh?
We do that anyway.
Say what now?
No. In other words, those who already receive merit increases, leave that there. And for whatever percentage of employees that do not receive merit, that they can be eligible for this COLA. And then therefore it will reduce the amount of the original ask because you have less employees that you're trying to do it for.
That creates a,
Creates a problem.
that creates a problem.
Well, who's those non-merit employees other than our staffs?
It's a hand.
I think she's referring to the ones that aren't.
She,
you know,
I was about to say, she seemed like she knows.
It's a hand.
You're within that 10
Is
steps.
Jefferson?
All the contract would be, yeah,
How many people is that?
it's not that many.
It's not bad.
I think she's saying the ones that don't get a merit increase this year because they've been here longer than 10 years, is my
Right,
understanding.
right.
Maybe, I don't know, but I don't know that the personnel board would allow us.
That
to
would
do
not allow that,
Yeah,
no.
It'd be
Okay.
discriminatory.
Yeah.
They will not. They
Well, the
will-
reason why I said we
They
had
will
done that
have the
one year at the city where you had those merit employees and for those who
And
were
maxed
not, well, they weren't merit status, then when we looked at the COLA, then we just applied the COLA to those folk who didn't have, as a medium where at least everyone was receiving something, especially when you're talking about when you may possibly, we're not looking at a deficit, but we're lean in this year.
I'll tell you what I can do. Let me ask these questions and make sure. I don't want us to do something that's not correct. There've been several questions asked if we can do this. I'll get the answers to them on Tuesday.
You know, bottom line, we want to help the employees,
No, do you like
but
that?
we understand the risk involved in putting forth a COLA. And because you're not just expending that money this year, you're spending that money in every year.
And the
You're
Personnel
staggering.
Board has given us some flexibility in March to do something.
Well, Mr. President, maybe then, upon us exiting this meeting today, maybe we need to find a legal terminology other than COLA to accomplish our goal, so that
What's
we
wr-
don't put the county at risk, because what we don't want employees is to feel as though they're not worth the risk. And so but I get it, all of us are for it, and it's not to point
Right,
any fingers.
right.
What I'm saying is, what we can do is to find some sort of fund that's within the general fund to accomplish some of what we're trying to do. If it's not, if COLA is the cost of living, if that's the issue that puts the county at risk, then let's find some other fund that we can appropriate dollars to, that at the appropriate time, we can be able to help to support our employees. And if there's no way around it, then fine, then we just deal with it head on. But I think if he asks for 2 and we drop it down to 1, I'm just saying that, it sends a clear message. And you'd be surprised, Mr. President, even though we say, hey, you get a Christmas bonus, whatever the case may be, there are a lot of folk that are doing some things that traditionally they probably wouldn't do or be tasked to do, just because of the fact we're in a pandemic. And that's the only thing that I'm saying, Mr. President. I think all of our hearts are in the right place. I just like to see us to come together and to do something that's tangible to those employees, where they know that this commission is not only appreciative, but we recognize that we can't function without the level of support we have with our employees.
I agree. I agree.
One consideration might be, if we're looking at a one-time payment without the commitment for the long term, might be a consideration. One time the county had a longevity program that's disappeared. I know it's still in use at some of the municipalities, but the county could decide if they wanted to designate a certain dollar amount to go towards that. We could
So
do a
now you're
one-time
talking about what I'm
longevity
saying,
payment.
which is to put it under
If
a
you get
fund,
right,
and we can
based
do
on the
it.
year of services, you
Mhm.
get a little higher if it's $100 for 1 to 3 years. Most of those in the early years going to have a merit increase. Maybe some of those it go 5 to 10, whatever. We can look at the scenarios and determine what might be appropriate, but that would give some of the longer term employees who haven't had a merit increase a number of years.
That would be great, Travis, I appreciate that.
So that's what I was talking about, Mr.
What we're
President.
looking at, yeah, and all you're saying is instead of a blanket increase, it would be based on longevity.
Yes, sir, and it could be a flat amount. We could determine what that allocation might be.
As long as we're based in around those same figures that we're talking about,
Yes.
I think but that's what I figured. We have 2,817 employees.
But we're not just talking about,
I'm talking about funding. I'm not talking about
2871.
2870. I got transposed, no, so, 2871, and,
That's how many employees.
and that's funded employees. That's not actual
Well,
employees,
2496
so it will be less than that. I'm sorry?
2496 field and 375 acre.
2496, so I say 2,500. And, yeah, that'd be good.
well, we're funded by taxpayers, and
We have to be responsible for them.
I do, and there's probably not a lot of them getting raises or COLAs or.
Yeah, but you got to understand, but
But I mean, I
the
understand.
taxpayers, they also can appreciate the service that has been provided. And I think the county has been very superb in the services that we have been providing. And I think it's showing up in our online accounts. Other folks, they don't have that kind of revenue that is active in their accounts, and that's due to the qualified workers that we have.
There's
And,
no
and,
doubt
and
about
so
our-
that's why
our
I'm
employees.
saying that, that we just have to see it for what it is. The taxpayers pay us as a county to provide a service. And we have to have service providers with the name employees. And that's who
I
they are.
agree.
So if we can kindly look, I love this idea that you're talking about. You basically gave definition to what I was trying to say previously, so thank you. And
All right.
thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Chairman
Let's-
and Madam Commissioner, so we can do that.
Let's revisit this one issue on the budget on Tuesday.
And then let's say we have whatever scenarios, if it's more
Right.
than one, that we can be provided that
Correct.
information? Is that what you're
We'll
saying?
bring you several scenarios.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Otherwise, are there any
But
questions?
you gotta remember, Mr. Patel,
On
now
the
we
budget.
holding you on the block now. So, you know, they work for you.
All right, any other questions on the budget before we leave? You know, the public service funds are, you know, we decided last year that we would revisit that at the end of the year. So we're not budgeting all these projects, other than the tornado shelters, and then whatever requests come in, we now have
Well, we just modified
Increase.
that, right?
we have increased discretionary funds.
Right.
All right, holiday schedule will be the same, Mr. Patelis,
I'm
as
sorry,
last,
what?
holiday schedule,
Yeah, we'll keep it the same.
okay? All right, well, that ends this report. Have a safe Labor Day.
The resolutions that accompany the budget, Trevor?
Yes, sir. BMO has those, and we'll get those distributed.
And something else we'll need to vote on is to set the meeting dates for next year. So
Which meeting date?
That's what, meeting dates in the.
Oh, yeah, that comes from.
So, Mr. President, let me ask this question before we leave. So, since we want to have the budget resolutions on the agenda, it will allow for it to be amended based upon the various scenarios concerning employees, right?
Only for that.
Only for that
Right,
portion
that-
of the budget, right?
Otherwise, we're pretty clear on the budget and pretty
Okay.
straight. That's the only outstanding, really issue that will have to be considered by the finance committee on Tuesday. Okay? All right, thank you very much.